Dailies on Echo Television International, where we keep you updated with what is happening on the papers. That of the NLC starting the protest and the strike, which is today, and already they have sent various venues where each of their members will be meeting in various states. So you just have to keep your fingers crossed as we keep you updated with all of the things that are happening on the papers. I am Sana Elisha Dashim, and I'll be doing this alongside Rachel Tenzi. Good morning.
Morning, Seven.
How you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. Remember, you can follow us live on Facebook and on YouTube. We are live there. Drop your comment, drop your contribution, your thoughts on any of the story that is of interest to you this morning. And we quickly run through the paper, and Rachel will be taking us through the first paper.
On Nigerian Tribune, military can't handle Nigerian problem. Abaje political scientist, a statement coming from a scientist concerning what is happening in the Niger Republic concerning the coup. And we have a writer that says Nigeria must take caution on Niger Republic's matter. This is a statement coming from I.A. Bode, and we hope democracy will be established without military intervention, coming from UK Foreign Secretary. You can find more details on page 2 and 19. Nigerians raise posters over Tinubu's relief package, want reduction in food prices, speech commendable, in tune with our request, a statement coming from MAN, make importation of electric cars duty-free, a statement coming from Kechuku. You can find the details on page 10. The big story on Nigerian Tribune, IGP talks tough as NLC TUC gear up for protest. Again, government moves to avert protest. Labour says no going back. Protest commences 7:30 a.m. today nationwide. Lagos transporters won't join, a statement coming from NC Olumo. You can find more details on page 5. PEPC reserves judgment in Atiku Obi's case. Freed Ondo kidnap victims, our abductors collected 2.2 million naira ransom, rice and cigarettes. You can find more details on page 23. Lift ban on fuel subsidy to border communities, Senate tells the federal government. More details of that story can be found on page 13. Senate screens El-Rufai, Edun, Adelabu, Musawa, Dengiwa, and others. Uproar over petition against former Kaduna governor. Foreign exchange rate should settle at 700 naira to $1 as government eyes foreign equity investments. Statement coming from Edu. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 5. We have a picture story and also a story that says aircraft crash lands on road in Ikeja. 2 rescued, investigation commences. More details can be found on page 23, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Nation newspaper, Senate to revisit CBN Act asks Opabio, says Opabio. You can find that on page 2 of the Nation newspaper. Tribunal reserves judgment in Atiku and Obi petitions. Resident deaf 2 weeks sit at home call in Southeast. Oyo Labour Union locked secretariat for the second day. We will recall that there was a little protest in Oyo where they locked down the secretariat door, and now we're seeing that the Labour Union have locked the secretariat for the second day. We hope that the government of Oyo will do something to address the grievances of the workers there. You can find detail on page 26. Emifele gets caught not to serve bail order on DSS. You can find that on page 3. How Tinubu will end electricity crisis by El-Rufai, discuss ownership for review, economy on recovery curve, says Edu. You can find more of that on page 2. The big story for the Nation, IG warn against violence as Labour insists on protests. NLC seeks security over for protesters. You can find more of that story. Still the picture story, jet crashes on Ikeja Major Road. You can find more of the issue about the crash on page 25. Immigration arrests Cameroonians seeking Nigerian passport. You can find more of the story also on page 3. And that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On leadership, Jais Bank's half-year profit rises by 51%. Leadership postpones conference on drug abuse. And we have trending, federal government claims it saved 1 trillion naira in 2 months, that is on the fuel subsidy removal. Nigeria's external reserves loses $167.2 million. More details can be found on page 2. Man wants tougher legislations on illegal mining. Senators send petition against nominees to security agencies. The big story on leadership palliatives. Labour begins nationwide protest. Federal government declares action illegal. IGP beefs of security warns against violence. Reps to monitor palliatives implementation. You can find the details on page 4. Tribunal reserves judgment in Atiku and Obi's petitions. Trump indicted over attempted subversion of U.S. presidential poll. Sierra Leone arrests military officers and others over coup plot. You can find more details on page 6. We still have a picture story showing the helicopter crash in Ikeja, Lagos. And that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the Daily Times, 1.35 billion naira fraud. EFCC asks Supreme Court to squash Sule Lamido and others acquittal. You can find all of that story inside the paper. And also on the ministerial screening, Apabio, Far North Senator save El-Rufai from answering divisive politics question. You can find that story inside the paper as well. Hope rises for Niger Delta as NDDC NLNG seek memorandum of understanding. And also we have dilapidated federal roads in Delta Edo now killing fields, with the rider following that 76 killed, says the Federal Road Safety Group. And also no it's much higher coming from commuters. How my brother died there, coming from a victim relation. You can find more of all that story, and we have quite a number of roads that are quite bad, not just in Delta and Edo, but most part of the country the roads are bad. So we hope the government of this various state and also the federal government will do something quick about that. Downside, we have light aircraft on test flight crashes in Lagos. Detail of that can be found on page 21, and that's all on Daily Times newspaper.
On The Guardian, danger averted as light aircraft on test run crashes on Lagos Road. See that home enforcers killed 250 people in 2 years, says Ohaneze. Falana warns ECOWAS leaders against attacking Niger Republic. You can find the details on page 7. The big story on The Guardian, rising hardship. NLC defies truce, proceeds on nationwide protest. Still on the paper, consider FCT 37 Nigerian state for presidential poll. Tinubu begs court. Senate shield El-Rufai from petition over insecurity in Kaduna. Foreign investment in equities marked decline by 90.6% in 10 years. You can find the business details on page 15, and that's all news on The Guardian newspaper.
Daily Sun, we have troops destroy more IPOB and ESN camp in Anambra Imo forest, arrest 5 injured scores. You can find more on page 4. Anxiety as tribunal reserve judgment, cancel to Tinubu, Atiku, Obi adopt final addresses. Heaven won't fall if I'm declared the winner. PDP candidate tells the court he has said this over and he's repeating it again. We have proved our case, says the Labour Party lawyer. Nigerians' foreign reserve in their situation. Senate warns caution against further naira depreciation. You can find that on page 8. Federal government spent over 3 trillion naira to save the power sector from collapsing, coming from the NESD. Also, we have no going back on nationwide protests, vows the NLC, dismisses report of shelving rally. No room for violent protests, IGP warn orders watertight security nationwide. Also, we have Senate screen Umahi, El-Rufai, 11 other ministerial nominees on day 2, and they hope to get another list hopefully today. So you can find more detail of that story on page 28, and that's all on Daily Sun.
On Vanguard newspaper, forest scarcity triggers 21% fall in I&E turnover to $1.68 billion. Court grants Emefiele leave to serve DSS DG, order transferring him to prison after bail. You can find more details on page 9. Court reserves judgment on Atiku Obi's petition. We have on the ministerial appointment, Senate screen El-Rufai, Umahi, Edu, Adelabu, and others. You can find more details on page 27. We have junta-led Burkina Faso, Mali warn against military intervention in Niger Republic. The big story on Vanguard, NLC insists on protests as talks fail. The writer under the story, IGP warns against violent protests. Federal government begs Labour to suspend protests. Labour says palliative not enough to cushion hardship. To brief organs on government plea to suspend protests. Ajero absent at meeting. TUC civil society allies direct members to participate in protests. It's police constitutional duty to protect Nigerians. A statement coming from NLC, and you can see more details of the big story on page 5. 4 persons rescued as plane crashes in Lagos. Benue announces 15,000 naira, 100,000 naira allowances for corps members and doctors. We are looking forward to that being implemented, and you can find more details on page 13. NM subsidy lift ban on fuel supply to border communities, Senate tells the federal government. We have an Afe Babalola column on page 22 and also a sports column on page 30, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch. Tinubu sends second ministerial list today. You can find names and also detail of that, hopefully, on page 29. You can check the Punch newspaper. Direct intervention in power sector hit 7 trillion naira coming from the federal government. Niger, Russia, Burkina Faso, Mali oppose ECOWAS military intervention. You can find detail on page 29, and it seems everybody is warning. We've even seen Falana warning, and we really need to know the intrigues and the detail of the issue of the coup. I think in one of the paper leadership, we've seen that even some military officers in Sierra Leone were actually planning a coup, and when they were caught, and you begin to wonder what the problem is. It seems as if various countries in the West Africa are beginning to take up that, and you begin to ask what the problem is. So I think, yes, in as much as our president is the chairman, we also have to look inwardly to be sure nothing is actually being triggered somewhere by somebody. Yeah. Mali is there, we have Niger right now, Sierra Leone are planning another one. So we also have to be careful, even though it's an international story, but we've seen a lot of people are beginning to take their hands off it, and even the people that actually are planning the coup are saying that no military should intervene in it. So I think detail needs to go into what really brought about that, and then I think that would be a better way to see how they can intervene, and then no lives will be lost as a result of it, or it doesn't escalate to other parts of West African countries.
Of course, you know, Sele, usually when it comes to something like this, an outthrow of power is usually because either the military feels that the present government are not doing what is expected, and they will do they will be better leaders to put the countries in place. And that's why a lot of people, when this happened on the paper, and we heard a lot of people saying Nigerians are peaceful, because it is the same hardship that we are going through, the same governance making policies that keep harming the masses, and yet we are still calm, putting our faith in people that have failed us over and over again. And yes, whether we like it or not, this is the case in many African countries, because we have similar challenges. We are having failed system of government. We are having our economy like going down. When you look at globally, the poorest countries in the world are in Africa and West Africa. We are not left behind when it comes to a good number of countries that are struggling when it comes to leadership, when it comes to government policies, and even when it comes to the economy. So yes, of course, no military, if a coup should take place, of course, the military government wouldn't want intervention from anyone, because it might be peaceful as it is now, in a lot of ways, because it is a bloodless coup. The president wasn't killed in the process. When there is military intervention, it can become bloody along the line, and I believe that that is why there is this warning, because they don't want it to be like that. But yes, we will keep seeing how it's unfolding, and of course they don't want intervention because they want things to go the way they have planned it to go. So we'll just wait and see what other measures the ECOWAS would take and other African countries would take to see that Niger Republic will be back to its normal state.
Now let's come back to our own state, the big story for the Punch, and I think it's important that we also talk about that. We say subsidy talk, Labour shun federal government, begin protests as oil workers down tool, have federal government NLC meeting, deadlock, Labour PDP berates Tinubu proposed pay rise, IG orders the AIGs, CPs to maintain order, prevent violence, Falana says the protest is lawful. Finally, 2nd of August is here, and already, just like I said from the opening, various venues have been sent by the union to actually tell its members this is where you're going to meet by 7 a.m., 7:30. We're going to start the protest. And of course, we've seen the IGP is warning against violence, because we know the way protests most times is. It's peaceful. Labour is trying to just make its demand being known, what they want. I think here we read some of the demand, the issue of no increase in tuition fee, the talking about increase of minimum wage for workers, looking at so many other things that are not working well, and even our naira keeps depreciating because of the floating of the naira and all of that. And quite a number of demands that, if you look at it critically, it is a just cause that the Labour are fighting for. And this is long overdue, because they wanted to go to strike long before now, but because of the court ruling on that, they were unable to go to that strike, or to also with the protests. And we've seen that already. Oil workers have already dropped their tools. They started theirs yesterday. So quite a lot of things are going down. And we've even seen MC Olumo saying that transporters will actually join in the strike. So that means for those who are essential workers, if you don't have a private car, you have to learn to trek to go to work, so you can make things well. And this is not what we wanted things are. A lot of Nigerians have expressed their displeasure concerning the address of the president. Looking at some of the things he said, we're talking about a long-term plan, not a short term, because we've seen on the paper Benue is hoping to increase, allowances for its core members, 15,000 for normal, 100,000 for medical doctor. And but back then I was wondering, why do our medical doctors tend to get better than we do, or higher pay? But that is just by the way. So quite a lot to really chew. And then looking at this whole strike and the back and forth, whether they wanted or not, and finally the strike is here. I'm just hoping that this doesn't go for a very long period of time. I hope the Senate will consider that. I hope that the government will consider what can be done, so we can have things going back, because really, Rachel, this is going to affect businesses a lot of way. This is really going to affect businesses, because it's a matter of time. We'll begin to hear Disco saying they will join in this also eventually. So that means there will be no electricity anymore, when Nigerians are already crying in the increase of fuel prices, and then we'll not have electricity and other things going down. So this is really not what we want. So we hope the government address all of these needs, and then soon and fast. Our doctors are on strike already, as it is presently. So I really hope something will be done better.
Stella, I believe the protest should take as long as it will take for the government to start rolling out palliative, because then the aim will be defeated if it stops and the federal government haven't started doing anything, because that is the aim, is to begin to reduce the hardship of Nigerians. And as long as the federal government doesn't start that, then every aim is being defeated by the NLC in the first place. So yes, it should take as long as till when the federal government are ready to be on their toes to start rolling out these palliatives and short-time, immediate, effective plans to reduce the hardship. Because we look at the address, and yesterday we clearly stated it here, it is but an address. It doesn't have any power to it yet. It's not effective immediately. This is not a document where we are seeing the president signing, okay, I have signed this and it's going to roll out soon. This is the committee in charge, and I have given them the go-ahead. I have signed all the documents, and then these things will start being effected immediately. It's not like that. It's just an address. And by looking at the nature of this address, you know that it is long-term. He said it himself, and even without the president saying it, that we will see some of these things coming to be implemented or being effected up to next year, first quarter of the year. Without him saying that, you will know that these plans are long-term. These are not short-term. We see saying 1,300 nano businesses, around 700 other local governments in the country getting 50,000. And we said that before this 50,000 naira gets to them, some of these businesses will already be closed down, because every day we are having businesses closing because they cannot keep up with production, they cannot keep up with demand, supply, and also the cost of manufacturing things in the country. So I'm just hoping that, you know what, we have the labor there. Let them stand on their feet and say, this is our demand. This is what we need the federal government to start doing, and there is no going back, as they have clearly stated. And we should hope and see that we have a government that is willing to listen. This is now where we will know whether we have voted the right people into power.
Or
This
not.
is, yes, this is where we will know whether we are about to see a better Nigeria. And until something start happening positively, then we know we're just in for a lot of trouble, and we should just keep bracing ourselves for more and more hard times in the country.
Honestly, Rachel, I just like you said, if they should stop the strike or the protest right now, the whole aim will be defeated. It breaks my heart. You remember on Monday we're saying on the papers where they said everybody should stock his house with food and medication, and I was asking the question, where is the money for you to stock that? We have states that workers have not been paid for over 4 months, 5 months. Pensioners have not seen their gratuity from 2021 till date. And then there is no time we've ever heard that members were not giving their allowances for every sitting. Even some of the sitting that Nigerians feel is not even in favor of them, like that of when they select the poor breed, and they were laughing. And I asked what was funny about the entire thing. And this is part of it. And you begin to ask, are the poor really breathing as it is?
They're not.
So I just hope that truly the government will realize that the cost of governance is very, very expensive. If they wanted the people to vote them, then they should know that it's not child's play. They need to rise up and do the right
They
thing. So
need
we
to.
keep our fingers crossed and see what they do about that,
So
Rachel. Still on the Punch newspaper, we have federal government orders probe as test flight plane crashes on Lagos road. You can find that on page 8. 500 illegal courier operators under prosecution coming from night post. Fake force official extort 35,000 naira from motorists on Lagos Ibadan Expressway. You can find detail on page 4. And I think FRS need to take up this. Even the various route workers need to check where we have some very tax force that are actually extorting money from motorists. We have them various. A lot of people have even lost their life as a result of that. And also the last story on the paper, foreign trained doctors, mass failure worsen Nigeria's manpower crisis. You want to know more about that story, you can check that on page 3. And that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, Labour ignores federal government plea, proceed with strike action. Display violence and pay for your actions, coming from the acting IGP. This is a warning to Labour, and we're looking forward to a peaceful protest because usually it's always been hijacked by hoodlums. So yes, let everybody that is in charge of protecting the Labour as they're on this peaceful protest be out there doing their job. Police CSOs call for dialogue. We can't afford to go backwards. Ariwa CSO pull out of strike. Doctors strike worsening service condition in government hospitals. NUPRC workers shut down office nationwide. You can find details on page 3. Diversified business model, optimal customer service responsible for resilient balance sheet. A statement coming from Eco Bank. Marketers list alleged extortion by DSS police as factors responsible for hike in PMS price. NCC BPSR Inc. a memorandum of understanding to digitalize government operations and curb corruption. Naseni seek policy to halt exploitation of lithium and other strategic minerals. We have ANCOM, NFU, indispensable agencies for Nigeria's financial system stability, coming from Justice Sowo. You can find more details on page 2, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On Blueprint newspaper, again, Nigeria cut short OPEC's production output in July. And you remember, Rachel, when we said that finally, now that we've gotten a little bit higher than Angola, it's high time that we sit up and not think that we're there. And now we're seeing on the paper, it's saying again, Nigeria cut short OPEC's, production. That is to say that we have really gone down again. So I really don't know. We've been talking about bringing out the names of the oil cabals, talking about those who have been stealing our oil. Let us have their names so that we really know that we have an accountable government. We're tired of hearing our government saying that they will be persecuted in secret. What are we protecting? Who are we protecting? So I really hope that when we say rule of law, let us know that the rule of law is in place, that nobody is above the law. If you break the law, then you should face the full consequences of it. So looking at the thing here, and then we've saying here over and over, we keep saying that we are part of the oil producing countries. We've heard some analysts coming out to say we are not part of the oil producing. We are still trying to get to the ladder
yes.
of being part of those big giants where you talk about oil producing countries, and then we keep leaving our oil, which actually contribute a huge to our GDP in the country, and then we keep leaving it here. With here vessels have been stolen, oil here, illegal refining left, right, and center. I just hope that the government, when we talk about governance, really do a thorough check and let us see that those people who are causing us a lot of loss when it comes to us meeting up to our quota will face the full rod of the law, and not just let us hear they are being persecuted. We don't know who they are, what their names are. There was a time where we heard some people coming out to say that I know this, I know and then we don't have a name. If you know, mention the name of the person so that he or she can face the law, face the full wrath of the law. So let's just keep our fingers, and I hope that the government will do a thorough check and then let us see them really, really, really being punished for all they are causing the country.
Because, also in attempt to make the barrel price of crude oil go high, OPEC decided to cut down some of the quota expected from oil producing countries, and of course Nigeria will be one of that. And then the attempt is to make sure that we have the barrel going higher, because it was standing at 74%, $74 per barrel, and then that was very low compared to how high it has gone to over $100 in past years. So one of it is cutting down the quota expected from the members to supply, and Nigeria definitely have not even been meeting its quota, so will be definitely affected by this cut. It's a way of controlling the market and supply and seeing that the price goes high. So yes, we need to sit up concerning oil production in the country, because if we are seeing if we're seeing it going low and still knowing that the barrel is not high, then we are going to see losses when it comes to our revenue. And already we are seeing that our oil revenue, majority of the revenue we've made when it comes to oil, has gone to debt servicing, not even reducing our debt. Sure. Specifically. So yes, we need to sit up and say, it all boils down to what we keep saying, that why are we joking with a sector that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cash crops that has many more potentials, and we're talking about agriculture, where living is sitting there sleeping and dying, when the government attention can all go towards that direction, and we will not be at a loss, because it has the capacity of making us enough revenue, even way above what oil is making for us as it is now. Yes, we just hope that the government does the right thing.
Well, let's look at other stories still on the Blueprint newspaper. We have the Nigerian forex market cap gains 1.8 trillion naira in July. That's for our business lovers. Do well to read more detail on page 22. CBN exclude mortgage and microfinance bank from cash withdrawal limit. You can find that story on page 23. We saw that even yesterday on the papers. The big story for fuel subsidy removal amid threat of protest today. Federal government begs labor. Police caution. The rider palliatives not enough. Protest must go on as planned. NLC TUC insists. Intervention conversation ongoing. Bajabia Miller pleads. We won't tolerate violent protests. IGP wants. You can find detail of the stories on page 6. And on the ministerial screening, 1.6 trillion naira subsidy on electricity unsustainable coming from El-Rufai. The writer following that saying massive use of technology will block revenue leakage coming from Wali Edu. You can find that on page 23. Presidential Election Tribunal reserves judgment on Atiku PDP petition. 4 injured as helicopter crashes in Lagos. We can see a picture story showing the crash. And on the subsidy removal marketing, PMS now unprofitable coming from Ipman. What can we do to make it profitable? You can find more detail of that on page 5. And that's all on the Blueprint newspaper. But before we continue with other paper review, we'd love to take a break at this moment so we can open the phone lines for our callers to call us. We'd love to hear what are your thoughts concerning the protests and the strike that have already started by the NLC. A lot of reactions still coming up. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are when we come back from the break. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Equal Television. We've been looking at quite a number of stories on the paper, and at this moment it is your time to actually call us by our number that is displayed on your screen. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are, what your contribution are concerning any of the story that is of interest to you. Please do remember to reduce the volume of your TV set, and at most you have a minute to express your thought, as other callers are actually waiting to actually air their views concerning the stories as well. I see I have Rachel Tanza with me in the studio. Thanks so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sally.
All right, let's continue with the paper review.
On this day newspaper, starting with a big story, NLC TUC adamant reject Tinubu's palliative, says no reason to call off protest. The writer under the story declared President silent on wage award fixing of refineries, hundreds protest in Kano over fuel price hike and others. No room for violent protests, IGP warns NLC orders tight security nationwide. Administerial screening, Wale Edun says Naira fair value is 700 Naira to $1. Hints on measures to boost economic recovery, says Office of Accountant General of the federal government should be created. Justifies plan to distribute $900 million cash to vulnerable Nigerians. El-Rufai, 1.6 trillion Naira subsidy on electricity not sustainable once discussed taken away from banks and management. And you can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 9. Trump charged with efforts to overturn his 2020 presidential election loss. You can find more details on page 6. Burkina Faso, Mali declares.
All right, let's take this call.
I just want to talk about this Adamawa, something that happened 3 days ago. Last week, I was saying something about this. If the citizens of the country start reacting, things will start happening. And you can see these are some of the signs. The federal government should do something about this. All this problem that's coming about is about this petroleum subsidy. So the best thing for the government to do is to please, for the sake of the masses and for peace to reign in this country, reverse and start giving palliatives before any other thing will be done. That's my contribution.
All right, thank you very much for that contribution. Still on this day newspaper, Burkina Faso, Mali declares support for Niger military junta, says invasion is a turnaround to declaration of war. You can find more details on page 44. Tribunal reserves judgment in Atiku's Obi petition against Tinubu. Atiku, Obi, Dati, Adichie order storm court at final address proceeding. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 12. We have a picture story showing Atiku at the tribunal, and that's all the news on this day newspaper.
On first newspaper, we have 16 northern groups pull out of labor protests and strike. You can do well to know who those groups are inside the paper. Other story here, Nigeria, Benin Republic are conjoined twins coming from Tinubu. Subsidy removal, reps welcome proposed minimum wage increase. You can do well to find detail of that story. Tribunal reserves judgment in Atiku Obi's petition against Tinubu's victory. Group protests in Kano lambast Tinubu's anti-people policies. You can find all that story inside the paper. The big story for most of the paper and also for the First News newspaper, Labour set for showdown with government today. Says no going back, mass protests will begin as scheduled. As IGP read a riot act, NLC TUC warned Labour against violent protests. Bajabiamile expresses confidence Labour will shelve action. You can find more detail of that story inside the paper. NSIB begins probe of Lagos helicopter crash. You can see the picture story by the side there. RFI proposes stringent measures for electricity sector. You can find more of that. IPOP Sakano's lawyer, Ejimako. You can find that story as well in the paper. And on the coup, Niger military rulers arrest 180 from former government. You can find more of that story inside the paper. And that's all the First News newspaper.
On Daily Independent, 2 persons survive as aircraft crashes in Lagos. NSIB commences investigation. Debtors now use third parties to max assets, AMCON cries out. The big story: fuel subsidy removal, nationwide mass protest starts today. Labour insists, says what federal government has put on table as palliative not enough. Perfect mobilization from state affiliate to unions. Police warns against violent protests and other watertight security. Tinubu failed to explain his plans for ailing refineries coming from the NLC. Court grants Emefiele's request to serve bail order on DSS. Presidential election court reserves judgment in OB Labour Party's petition. You can find the details on page 6. And the ministerial nominees drama as Senate screens El-Rufai, Umahi, Musawa, and 6 others. You can find the details on page 6. Airlines jettison Kaduna Airport over insecurity. We have FAN, NCAA, NAM loses. We have they reverses the other more of transportation, the other modes of transportation. You can find more details inside.
All right. Hello. Good morning.
Okay. Yeah, good morning, young ladies in the studio.
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
My name is Thomas. I'm calling from Lagos.
All right. Please go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, I want to have a stake on the nationwide protest by the Nigerian Labour Congress. It is a welcome development. I am in support of that mass protest. You see, but what I am against is the protest hoodlums hijacking the protest. Though I know that the Nigerian police and other agents, security agents, they are there to supervise the mass protest by the NLs. You see, the president, he has been making statements. Why? What has he said concerning our refineries that are not working? If he took a giant step by removing the fuel subsidy, which is a welcome development. We love that. But what step has he taken to make sure that our refineries are fixed, they are working? It is because of our refineries, their inability to refine our crude oil, which God used to bless Nigeria. You see, don't you see how I don't know any adjectives to qualify Nigeria. Our ignorance, our greediness that makes Nigeria to export crude oil, refine that oil, the crude oil there, and again import the refined crude back to Nigeria. That is foolhardy. It is unfortunate. The president should come clear. He said that among the 3 notable presidential candidates, the president, Tinubu, said that he was most prepared. But the developments, the things that are unfolding suggest that the presidency wasn't prepared at all. He should get up. He should sit up. It is not signing documents. Let him be proactive. Let him bring out alternatives to cushion the effect of the subsidy removal. Now, I want to speak on the recent coup. It was I see it as a palace coup, because if this guy's military junta now that is in power in Niger Republic, if they meant ill for that country, let me tell you, the president, the former president, they overthrew power from. They would have killed him. But I think that this military junta now in power, they meant well for that Niger Republic. You see, Nigeria should distance herself from that military overthrow in Niger. Why? You see, few weeks ago, Putin, the president of Russia, he held a conference inviting the whole African head of state, which Nigeria was represented there. Let me tell you, that meeting alone suggests that Russia has interest in West Africa. And don't be surprised, there are so many other African countries that are being ruled by military junta. What has ECOWAS done to them? ECOWAS has not done anything. And the Niger power changing over to the military should be taken very gently, so that it will not escalate into what we may not bargain for. That is it. I am using this opportunity. You people read that the Presidential Election Tribunal reserve judgment. You see, we are banking on this, our justices. They should do justice. If they have read and gone through the written addresses made by the lawyers, they should go on to give us the judgment. They should go on to tell us who actually won the 2023 presidential election. That is my take this morning. God bless all of you.
All right, thank you. Quite an elaborate, expression of things that are happening that are not going right. And we just hope that we fix everything, how the ECOWAS can come in, how we can fix our refinery. Quite a number of things to be fixed, Richard. Just like we said, there's no sector in Nigeria that does not need an immediate intervention. We hope the government will, come through as fast as possible.
We hope so, Sally. Still on Daily Independent, the last story at the downside of the paper, we grilled ministerial nominees based on areas of competence. A statement from Yari. You can find details.
We should be patient. This government have not lasted 4 months. And the sickness we are finding solutions to has been there for years. We should not mix politics with hatred. We should not mix politics with hatred. But we need God to salvage our country. And God can use it. And we have any other person down, all those contenders. Any one of them can be okay for Nigeria, but if you carry on with all this, our bitterness, nobody will govern Nigeria aright. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, for that. Well, let's take a look at the Sweet Crew report paper. And on the Sweet Crew, we have end of Nigeria's fuel subsidy set to squeeze Europe refineries. You can find more detail of what that means on the front page and also on page 2. And we have Nigeria loses $2.5 billion to gas flaring annually. This is a report coming from the reps. You can read more of that story inside. Navy claim credit for Nigeria's rising oil output. So far, they've been doing their best to arrest and also seize vessels that are leaving the shores of Nigeria illegally. You can read more detail of that. And we have NCDBM offers first mover advantage for investors at the oil parks. You want to know what that means? Do well to grab the Sweet Crew reports and read more of that.
What happened to Nigeria is what's supposed to happen to Nigeria, because none of these people, they are calling themselves rulers. They are not rulers. Then if Nigerian soldiers can take over the government because they are rule, I believe that they are doing well more than the civilians. Since we enter into civilian rule, we have been suffering. So let what happens to Nigeria come and happens to Nigeria. That will be okay for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Well, that's all on the Sweet Crew report, Rachel.
On Business Day newspaper, the big story, Tinubu's power reforms targets 6 discuss ownership and management. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 3. Flight delays loom as aviation workers set to join strike. Companies' dividends on shaky grounds as devaluation bites. We have tribunal reserves judgment in Atiku's petition against Tinubu. Nigeria's business activity hits 4-month low, and we have confidence shrinking. You can find more details on page 30, and that's all the news on Business Day newspaper.
Well, if we're having all these businesses shrinking, really something needs to be done. Even though manufacturers are happy with this policy by the president, but then still a lot of businesses are really shaking. People are unemployed, so intervention is really quick and fast. We need a short-term, intervention, not just the long-term that the president needs. People have said it's quite a fancy and a beautiful speech, but honestly, we need something to be done. If you want to review salary, do that quick. Already riot acts have been read for NLC, right? That is to say that there are rumors somebody will hijack that protest. So I hope that the police will protect the lives of Nigerians while they protest, and I hope something will be done for businesses. Well, let's take a look at the world of sport for sport lovers on Sporting Sun newspaper. And on Sporting Sun, we have the big one here, FIFA Women World Cup. We are not scared of England coming from well drum. All right, let's take the score.
How Nigeria has been going. All through the time of President Muhammadu Buhari, we've been receiving promises from the previous administration that we should calm down, we should give them time. We've been given time from then till now. Nothing has been done. So this time we are also asked to be patient too. How long are we going to be patient? Nigeria still remains the same. Instead, things will be going wrong. Instead of things to be getting better, things get going wrong. How long? And the worst is just that they put some palliatives or some measures that will favor them, not thinking of the citizens. Looking at the NLC, NLC is now the hope of the common man. Mark it. NLC is now the hope of the common man, no longer judiciary. How can judiciary put injunction? Even judiciary, when they are looking for autonomy, nobody put injunction. Whenever they go on strike, nobody put injunction, or nobody stop them from going on strike. But when NLC want to look for their rights, they will now take, what will I call it, highway judgment, which is not good. So NLC is now the hope of the common man. How long are we going to? Now, coming to that presidential election to tribunal, they should look into that case very well. I pray that the spirit of Ghana must go will be far from any of these cases, because Nigeria are watching. Nigerians are watching. So for the protest, we are going with it. As soon as I'm done now, I'm going out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. Well, still on the Sporting Sun newspaper, we're looking at we are not scared of England, which is the big one coming from Weldrum. FIFA to pay Falcon prize money directly. Lauren James on fire as England destroys China. We have on the Guinness World Record, Messi surpasses Ronaldo as footballer with the most record titles. For football lovers, you can read more of that. PSG ready to take Real Madrid to FIFA over Mbappe now. Also, we're having Tottenham to join race for Gift Orban. Turkish club places Oyekuru for sale, and we have man regrets Mail spill. I have unfinished businesses with Adesina. You can find more of all of this on the front page of the Sporting Sun and more sports stories inside the paper, and that's all we can take for today. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Celia.
Thank you to our callers who called in and contributed to the program. Thank you to our crew member, our producer. Thank you to the Echo Executive and many others who have been supporting Echo Television. We really appreciate you thus far. Until we come here again, do have a blessed day ahead.